to go back to 1 Corinthians chapter 11 and kind of take a look at the reason that Paul was talking about the Lord's Supper in the first place. It wasn't that he needed to reteach them about the Lord's Supper, although he did need to do that. It was to correct them about their love feasts. The problem at Corinth was you had the haves and the have-nots, and we mentioned that in the sermon this morning, but I wanted to read you that passage so you could kind of see the severity of the problem at Corinth. Paul says, "In the following directives, I have no praise for you, for your meetings do more harm than good. In the first place, I hear that when you come together as a church, there are divisions among you, and to some extent I believe it. No doubt, there have to be differences among you to show which of you has God's approval. When you come together, it is not the Lord's Supper that you eat. For as you eat, each of you goes ahead without waiting for anybody else. One remains hungry, another gets drunk. Don't you have homes to eat and drink in? Or do you despise the church of God and humiliate those who have nothing? What shall I say to you? Shall I praise you for these things? Certainly not." One of the things that I admire about the modern church and the way that we do the Lord's Supper is that we have it sectioned off and separate. On the one hand, I like the idea of the love feast and having the communion during a meal, because it's like Jesus did. They were eating the Passover meal, and then he took the cup and gave the Lord's Supper in a meal setting. The problem with that is getting everybody together and transitioning back and forth from a meal to a solemn remembrance of the Lord's death. And some congregations would have problems with that, I think. Another problem is that you have people who just don't have anything. So they feel a little embarrassed to just come and take what's given and not be able to contribute. And in Corinth, it was worse than that. They would go ahead and eat without thinking about those who didn't have anything. And it struck me a while ago that as some of us were visiting before we came down for lunch, that you guys waited on us to get here to have lunch. It's a sign of respect. It's a sign of encouragement that you didn't want to just go ahead and let us catch up, but that you were willing to wait a couple of extra minutes and do something nice for us. Josh, act like you were being nice. It's okay. But our conservative brethren have a problem, and they use this passage to kind of back it up. Don't you have houses to eat and drink in? And if you look at the pattern of the New Testament church, a lot of times they met in homes. Right? So, yes, they had houses that they could eat and drink in. They didn't have to have the big love feast when they came together. They could do that separately. The haves could eat with the haves at home, and that would be fine. And the have-nots could kind of catch as catch can in their own homes, and that would be fine. But Paul is not trying to say that we shouldn't fellowship with each other. He's simply trying to say that when we fellowship with each other, that we should make sure that everyone is included, which we do, and we should make sure that if the Lord's Supper is connected to that in any way, that we don't exclude people who don't have the ability to bring something or who don't have the availability to be with us at that particular time. So there's a lot of things going on in Corinth that were problematic. They had lots of trouble. And as you read the letter of 1 Corinthians, you see that. Paul had to correct a lot of different things. But how much worse could it be than a group of people who are getting together and saying, what we're remembering right now is Jesus' death, burial, and resurrection. And we're showing forth his death until he comes, but we're sorry, we're not waiting on you. We've got other things to do. Right? So that sense of unity, that sense of camaraderie, that sense of inclusion that goes along with the Lord's Supper is something that's very special to the whole thing. Not only am I celebrating my relationship with Christ and his gift for me, but as we're taking the Lord's Supper together, I'm celebrating his gift for you at the same time. I examine my own heart, but I celebrate your salvation. If there's something I can do or we can do to help you by way of a public response, we'd love to do that as we sing.